You're watching Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. This is Newsfeed, the AM edition. I'm Ayanda Nyathi. It's great to be in your company. So, 27 years ago to this day, the political landscape of South Africa changed drastically when it was announced that Chris Hani, the late leader of the South African Communist Party, had been assassinated outside his home in Boksburg. Last month, Hani's killer, Janusz Walus, was denied parole. He's serving a life sentence at Kgosi Mampuru, the second correctional center in Pretoria, for Hani's death back in 1993. Joining us now live to remember the liberation struggle hero that Hani was, is South African Communist Party's second Deputy General Secretary, and that's Mapaila. Dr. Mapaila, thanks very much for your time. On any other day, this is certainly top of mind and central in many South Africans' lives. And in the past, it's been easy to call for people to gather and remember the importance of this day. For obvious reasons, that's not possible today. How then do we go about still marking its significance?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayanda, and good morning to our viewers, and happy Good Friday. Obviously, you are very right, but today at about 11 o'clock, our General Secretary, Comrade Blake, will give the main statement of our message on this day, the 27th anniversary since the assassination of our General Secretary, Comrade Chris Hani. And as well, we'll also have messages from the Alliance, but this will be done online. Because of the current lockdown, we won't be able to go to the gravesite in consultation that we had with the family.
Right. And, you know, one of the many lessons, I guess, to be learned from Chris Hani, the man himself, is the idea of working together for a common struggle. The enemy back then was pretty obvious and clear. In many respects, the enemy is clear now, too. But what other lessons are we able to carry from that into our moment now as we face, arguably, the biggest threat to democratic South Africa?
Well, of course, currently the biggest threat to South African humanity is the current coronavirus crisis. And with the pandemic, we think it's something that needs to be attended to. Our people need to listen to the main message from government about how to take care and make sure that we minimize the infections and finally defeat this pandemic. Because without that, we'll not be able to make progress as a country and as a people. And this is a very dangerous disease. So it's at the moment a very critical one. But obviously, linked to that, it has shown to us the deeper crisis of the capitalist system and the necessity for government to work much faster to respond to the challenges and the needs of the people. Chris Hani, as you know, would have launched many other important programs when he was leading the Communist Party to intervene in the well-being of the people. There was a campaign that he launched which was quite popular. It's been popular in the Communist Party even today, which was called the Triple H campaign, meaning health, hunger, and housing. And you can see even in the current crisis of this pandemic, the COVID-19, the people who are staying in shacks or what you call squatter camps or informal settlements are the most affected, in a sense that there's not enough capacity for social distancing. We have to take further measures. People have no water and all of that. So in this case, it remains a very relevant campaign to be taken forward even post this pandemic.
Absolutely. So it's been almost 3 decades since the assassination took place. Even in the midst of a crisis, I can't help but wonder how much political consciousness there still is around a day like this. And, you know, the kind of ways through which that reality would help us at least sustain the challenges now. Do you think enough priority has been given to this moment and where it fits in our sort of political history?
No, not enough. I think we've had a problem in this country about political history and the whole notion of appreciation of revolutionary struggle. There's less, for instance, even in the curriculum that we are taught, our children are taught about the history of struggle against colonialism and against apartheid and against imperialism. All this have literally contributed significantly to the underdevelopment of our people that we see today, and even of our countries and continents, as opposed to the imperialist countries of Europe and America that have subjugated other countries all over the world. So it's a big issue that particularly young people need to about the history of their country, the value system of that liberation cause. But I can say we can do more as political parties and, of course, even as government to bring this mass social consciousness.
But I'm sure we've gotten some things right in Mapaila. I imagine in the 27 years since the assassination, there's some things that Chris Hani will be able to look at and be pleased to find. What do you think some of those things are?
Well, what we can only do is to dedicate this day to his memory and also to look into some of his own value system, how he lived by. He was a man of deep conviction that gave his all to the country and to its people. He fought for liberation. So what we can do during this period is to elevate those value systems of sincerity, honesty, and service to the people wholeheartedly without expecting anything in return, which is what him and his comrades were characteristics of. If you look at the entire team of the Tuli detachment, some of them have died with nothing, but they've given their youth and their all to the liberation of this country. Those values are what we think we need to entrench in our country, in our value system today.
Right. And, you know, for individuals, men of stature like Chris Hani, who've given so much to the country, that's usually come at a cost of their own families. As we look back on this day, 27 years later, I do wonder whether you think the current dispensation is doing enough to take care of those families. And as you do that, hopefully you can give us a bit of insight into how Chris Hani's family itself will be remembering him today.
Well, of course, they will be at home, but Lindy Hani will give, the daughter of Comrade Chris, will give a message on behalf of the family, which will be broadcast on our media platforms. But quite clearly, you are very right. Families like this are not being properly looked after. But you know that Chris Hani was not alone. He represented a generation. He represented a caliber of a particular team of comrades, those selfless ones. Their families need to be looked after, but it's not necessarily the case. We think that we can do more in that particular respect to make sure that they're taken care of to the extent that they would have done it. I mean, as you know, Comrade Chris himself was a graduate, highly educated comrade who decided to take up arms and risk his life and that of his family. And his family paid a huge sacrifices. At some point, they were attacked, Ausdimpo herself, when they were looking after him and her as well, because she was also an activist in her own right. So it's very clear that I think as a revolution, broadly speaking, we need to reflect on this thing to look into the families of the stalwarts of our liberation struggle, how they are living, what will those stalwarts, for instance, or could say if they were alive and looking at the families of other stalwarts of the liberation movement living in similar conditions. So we can do more as a revolution as well as government that benefited from the revolutionary struggle of this country.
Right. And you speak about a revolution quite often, and there's obvious reasons for that. Outside of the coronavirus pandemic, which has certainly taken the world by storm and is the main focus, at least for our generation at this point in time, what else do you think the liberation and the revolution should be about today, though? You know, what should our focus be as, of course, we try to ensure that everybody in the country is where they should be insofar as the politics, the economy, etc. is concerned?
The main task and contradiction in our society is to resolve the class inequality in our society, to understand why people are poor, why others are rich, why these inequalities exist. And that's the primary task, particularly of those who are communist revolutionaries, to resolve that major contradiction so that people can live equally across the board. We have what we call an egalitarian society, meaning that you will have a society where there is no such disparities that are so wide and open in any country. People can live better. If you go to some of the socialist countries, for instance, Cuba, you'll find that both the leadership and the masses and what you call those who have achieved in society are almost at the same level. There's no huge or visible inequalities in that particular society. So this commitment to resolve these challenges, in our case, have been explained as fighting the triple challenge of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And of course, underlying a crisis, whether it's the lack of housing, lack of health facilities. That's why we've called for the speedy implementation of the National Health Insurance as the Communist Party. We took up this particular campaign from the beginning in memory of Comrade Chris to fight for the health of our people. So all of those fundamentals should be achievable, particularly given the level of resources that our country has.
Absolutely. An unprecedented moment in our history, ironically being celebrated in an unprecedented moment in our presence. Thank you very much for your time. Soli Mapaila is obviously the SACP's second Deputy General Secretary, joining us there as we remember the life and legacy of former leader Chris Hani.